Have you ever noticed that even the most ignorant people you know believe they are right? And the worst part is, they think you are wrong. That is not the tragedy. The tragedy is that you do the same thing.
Perhaps with less arrogance, perhaps with nicer words, but you do it. Deep down, we are all experts at despising doubt and calling it intelligence. We choose a side before understanding. We defend ideas as if they were our children. We reject facts, distort discourse, ignore evidence, and at the end of the day, we sleep soundly because I am entitled to my opinion. But you are not. You are only entitled to what you have the courage to question. Michel de Montaigne wrote this differently 400 years ago, with more elegance. It is easier to give birth to a child than to an idea. The world adores those who speak well, who argue firmly, who impose themselves. But Montaigne said, "Trust the one who doubts more than the one who asserts, because the one who doubts thinks, the one who asserts repeats." Truth does not need shouts, certainty does. That is why fanatics vociferate and the wise whisper. This video is a direct attack on your desire to be right, not to humiliate you, but to free you. Here, Montaigne will show you that doubt, that thing we were taught to avoid, is actually a forgotten virtue. A way to see further, judge less, and understand more. And maybe, just maybe, if you doubt sincerely for the first time in your life, you will start to understand something. The worst kind of prison is the one that looks like freedom. Nothing imprisons a human being more than the feeling of being correct. Being sure is comfortable. Being sure is efficient. Being sure is an existential relief because it frees you from the anguish of not knowing. But Montaigne immediately dismantles us. Man is most vulnerable when he is most convinced, and it is no coincidence. Conviction is the disguise of fragility. It is the shout of the argument from someone who fears listening. It is the last resort of an ego desperate to remain intact. Certainty is narcissistic. It does not want to understand, it wants to win. That is why, when someone contradicts you, you do not hear the argument. You feel you have been attacked. And here is the problem. The modern ego does not seek truth. It seeks reaffirmation. The mind's algorithm is simple. If I am right, I have value. If I am wrong, I crumble. Montaigne perceived this long before psychology invented names for this behavior. That is why he distrusted himself with a level of honesty that was almost painful. I portray not being, but becoming. Not a fixed and constant man, but a man changing, variable, and even contradictory. This is more than modesty. It is a radical philosophical stance. He rejects the idea of a solid self and prefers to see himself as a flow, a mind that oscillates, that changes its mind, that admits inconsistencies. And this is the difference between a freethinker and a narcissist disguised as a sage. The former lives at war with his certainties. The latter, at war with anyone who challenges him. Look at how this shapes us every day. You hear someone say something that contradicts your opinion. You do not ask, does this make sense? You arm yourself, attack, look for arguments as one looks for ammunition. The truth is already decided. The rest is a battle. And so, the real question is not, are you right? The question is, what are you trying to protect with such fervor? Montaigne knew that the human mind is a machine for self-deception. He wrote, "No desire is more natural than the desire for knowledge, but making mistakes is our greatest ability." That is why he proposed the essay as a form of thought. Not a treatise, not a revealed truth, but an attempt, an exercise, a test of self against self. Every time he wrote, he put himself to the test, because the goal was not to convince, but to understand. That is why Montaigne dismantles intellectual arrogance without raising his voice, because he understood before anyone that the mind needs doubt as much as the body needs air. And you can continue to defend your certainties until the end, but you will inevitably be trapped in them. Every certainty is a disguised form of ignorance. Montaigne knew this. That is why, instead of proclaiming truths, he asked, "Que sais-je? What do I know?" This question is not modesty. It is a blow to the very structure of human reason. Because the instant man admits he does not know, he destroys the throne where his ego was seated. Montaigne's skepticism is not that of someone who doubts for sport. It is that of someone who perceived that human knowledge is unstable because man is unstable. If the knowing subject is fragile, how could the knowledge be solid? He writes, "Human nature is a moving clay without fixed form, and our opinions follow the same course. This is the point few can bear to face." Montaigne's doubt is not against knowledge. It is against the pretense of knowing. Doubt for him is a form of intellectual hygiene. It prevents thought from rotting in the vanity of its own certainties. Every philosophy that begins with "I know" ends in dogma. And this is where Montaigne separates himself from systematic philosophers. He does not build logical castles. He walks among the ruins because he knows that every philosophical system, sooner or later, becomes a prison. To affirm is boldness. To deny, foolishness. And between these two is the path of doubt. This phrase is a judgment. It defines the only position a lucid spirit can occupy, the mobile middle ground between certainty and denial. It is not about relativism. Montaigne does not say that everything is uncertain. He says that we are uncertain, that human consciousness is so mutable that even our most sincere convictions are temporary. Observe the paradox. Man seeks truth, but is made of instability. He wants the absolute, but lives in the transitory. He wants solidity, but he is made of wind. The inevitable result is illusion, the delusion of wanting to fix what is mobile. Therefore, Montaigne does not seek to eliminate doubt, but to dwell in it. He transforms, I don't know, into a method, an existential posture, an ethic. To doubt for him is to respect the limits of the mind and, at the same time, expand its freedom. And here we come to the inescapable point. The one who rejects doubt is not rational. He is cowardly, because doubt demands strength, while certainty is the refuge of the weak. Doubt is uncomfortable, but it is the only honest path. Montaigne states, "Ignorance that knows itself is the wisest." This is one of the most concrete and powerful ideas of modern philosophy, and one of the most humiliating, because it dismantles human pride at its root. There is no honor in being right. The honor is in not letting yourself be deceived by it. And if doubt is the starting point, thought becomes an adventure, not a dogmatic construction, but a living, breathing, infinite search. The sage, then, is not the one who knows. It is the one who keeps learning in spite of himself. What Montaigne teaches is cruel and liberating. The one who doubts approaches the truth. The one who asserts too much distances himself from it. We seek firmness. We want life to make sense, the world to work, people to be coherent. But the more we try to fix things, the more they slip away. Man wants order, but lives in contradiction. This is the wound and the illusion of all time. Michel de Montaigne saw it rawly. The soul that has no fixed aim disperses. The problem is that to flee from this dispersal, we invent certainties. We create doctrines, absolute truths, unquestionable ideologies, and we cling to them as if they were buoys in a stormy sea. But that buoy does not float, it sinks. What Montaigne saw in his time, and what is absolutely current, is the human thirst for quick answers, ready-made formulas, comforting certainties, only contrary to what is thought. This is not rationality, it is fear, he wrote during the wars of religion in France. Catholics and Protestants were killing each other in the name of truth. The argument did not matter. What mattered was winning, imposing, converting, punishing, and Montaigne, instead of taking sides, isolated himself and wrote, hated by the fanatics, respected by the free. Presumption is our most incurable disease, Montaigne recorded. Nothing has changed. The vice is the same. Being right, proving the point, destroying the other. There is no room for listening. There is no time for thinking. Everything is affirmation, judgment, attack. Because doubting has become weakness. Admitting ignorance has become humiliation. The consequence of this is a society of experts who have never studied, of the conscious who have never reflected, of the authentic who cannot bear to be contradicted. Montaigne is squarely opposed to this. His philosophy is a shield against the owners of the truth, whether they are religious, political, or academic. He distrusts eloquence, authority, and ostentatious erudition. I prefer a well-made head to a well-filled head. This phrase has been trivialized, but its original meaning is devastating. It does not matter how much you know. It matters how much you think. And true thinking requires the courage to say, I might be wrong. Courage to dismantle one's own certainties. Courage to listen without responding. Courage to stop talking. If we are honest, almost no one wants that. Culturally, we are trained to win debates, not to expand consciousness. As cognitive psychology shows, confirmation bias makes us seek evidence for what we already believe, not for the truth. And here, Montaigne is necessary. He proposes the essay as a testing ground, not to prove something to the world, but to examine himself with severity. Doubt in this context is not paralysis, it is ethics. The one who doubts does not impose. The one who doubts considers. The one who doubts respects. And above all, the one who doubts thinks beyond his own bubble. The central question that arises from this is, do you want to be right, or do you want to be free? Reason imprisons when it becomes absolute. Doubt liberates because it forces you to always start over. The greatest evil of humanity was never dressed in wickedness. It was dressed in reason. No one enters a war believing they are wrong. No one participates in an inquisition believing they are the villain. No one burns a body for pleasure. They burn it for principle. Horror does not begin with hatred. It begins with certainty. Montaigne lived at the epicenter of that disaster in 16th century France. Catholics and Protestants killing each other for God, for honor, for truth. Cities destroyed, neighbors denouncing neighbors, children slaughtered for the wrong confession. He writes, "It is by putting reason on a throne that we commit the greatest injustices." The phrase seems contradictory. How does reason lead to evil? Simple. When reason does not doubt itself, it becomes tyranny. It ceases to be an instrument of understanding and becomes a weapon. Every ideology that believes itself to be purely rational is 2 steps away from violence. Because the one who is too right does not negotiate, does not listen, does not back down, does not see the other as a being, but as an obstacle. History is full of this. Totalitarian regimes, bloody revolutions, genocides, all were born from the same womb, the conviction that the other was the error. Nothing is so firm that it cannot be moved, he wrote. But we hate that idea, because accepting that even our most intimate beliefs can be moved is recognizing that we, too, can be dangerous, and that is unbearable for the ego. So we prefer to maintain the illusion. Only others are fanatics. I am rational, my cause is just, but Montaigne does not let us escape. He forces us to look inside and ask, how far would I go for what I believe? And even more, does what I believe truly belong to me? Or was it implanted in me? Because the real problem is this: certainty never comes alone. It comes with moralism, with superiority, with the disguised desire for punishment. And the more convinced a person is that they are doing good, the more willing they will be to commit atrocities in the name of it. Look at the present. People being publicly canceled as if they were war criminals. Instant judgments, digital lynchings, symbolic executions. The language has changed, but the spirit is the same. The spirit of certainty that wants to cleanse the world of those who think differently. Montaigne knew that peace is not born from the victory of one side over the other. Peace is born from the consciousness that everyone is always, to some extent, wrong. The fanatic is nourished by the illusion of being virtuous, Montaigne claimed. The problem is not believing. It is believing too much, to the point of thinking that whoever does not believe the same does not deserve to live, speak, or exist. And here, there is no room for counter-argument, because any counter-argument that refuses to doubt itself is already on the side of the certainty that justifies violence. The only antidote Montaigne recognizes for this poison is doubt, not as weakness, but as strength. The strength to recognize that truth does not reside in a single place, and that, almost always, the worst crimes in history were committed by those who were too right. Some people spend their entire lives defending ideas they never chose. They die for principles they inherited, fight for causes they do not even understand, and never, not for an instant, ask themselves, what if I am only repeating noise? Montaigne asked himself that question every day. To teach is, above all, to doubt with elegance. Doubt for him was not an impasse. It was a method, a way of living with more dignity, less violence, and more contact with reality. Because while certainty seeks power, doubt seeks meaning. And the one who seeks meaning begins by listening. Today, we confuse conviction with character, but conviction without reflection is just stubbornness in a suit, and Montaigne knew it. The world is full of strong opinions and weak minds. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. Belonging to oneself is rare because it requires a form of humility that most reject. The humility to say I don't know without feeling diminished, to accept that living well is less about having answers and more about sustaining good questions. Doubt in this sense is not a hesitation. It is a mirror. It reveals what is behind certainty: fear, pride, vanity, habit, and it forces you to separate what you think from what is thought for you. In practice, it is much harder to live in doubt than in certainty. Doubt demands attention, demands real listening, demands thinking slowly in a world that accelerates everything. But it is doubt that protects. It protects from manipulation, protects from rush, protects from fanaticism disguised as justice. The one who doubts does not react, he thinks. The one who doubts does not shout, he ponders. The one who doubts does not follow, he chooses. Montaigne transformed this into life. He was not a professor, no, nor a preacher, nor a master. He was a man with the courage to undress on paper, to contradict himself without shame, to change his mind without apologizing, to laugh at his own ignorance, and yet still continue writing. Doubt did not paralyze him, it moved him. There is no desire more natural than the desire to know, but it is rare that someone sincerely desires to know. This is the final point: doubt. But doubt, well, doubt what they said, what they expect, what they imposed. But above all, doubt yourself. Because perhaps what you call identity is just repetition, and what you call certainty, just fear. Doubt, when well directed, does not destroy. It refines. It does not dissolve. It reveals. It does not weaken. It matures. And in a world that rewards those who shout, who cancel, who dominate, doubting may be the only true gesture of freedom. If you have come this far, perhaps there is a rare restlessness in you, a discomfort with ready-made truths, a tiredness of the superficial world, and a sincere will to think, even when thinking hurts. And if what you seek is to continue reflecting deeply, connecting with strong ideas, uncomfortable but necessary, consider also becoming a channel member. You will have early access to videos, exclusive content, and a community that values free thought. More than that, you will be supporting this work, which lives on philosophy, not the algorithm. And, yes, the Super Thanks feature is also available. It is a simple way of saying, this touched me, this was worthwhile. A small gesture, but one that makes a huge difference to the continuity of this project. But listen, just by having watched this far, you are already helping a lot. You kept your attention on something that does not shout, that does not cancel, that does not promise formulas, and that, in today's world, is already an act of resistance. If this video made sense to you, share it. Show it to someone who insists on being right, or someone who needs to relearn how to doubt. After all, this only makes sense if it touches someone. And if it touched you, it was worth it. See you in the next video, with fewer certainties and much more courage to think.